Certainly.
What about Woodrow Wilson? Was he as violently opposed to the constraints of the Constitution
well,
as
it's interesting.
Lincoln?
Woodrow Wilson was a notorious racist. Woodrow Wilson segregated the federal government and segregated the military, which had been integrated from Reconstruction up to the era of Woodrow Wilson. He was an old-fashioned Protestant Virginia racist who migrated north to attend Princeton University and become the president of Princeton. I am myself a graduate of Princeton, so it's a little bit heretical for a Princetonian to criticize Woodrow Wilson.
You're going to hear it today on Twitter.
And then, of course, he becomes the governor of New Jersey for just 18 months when he runs for president. But he and his Republican pal, though they hated each other, Theodore Roosevelt, had a very interesting view of the Constitution. Their view of the Constitution was it permits the federal government to do whatever the times demand and whatever the president and the Congress agree on, except what is expressly prohibited in the Constitution. That is the exact opposite view of the framers, who basically said in the 10th Amendment, you can only do what we have expressly authorized you to do, and all other governmental powers belong to the states or to the people. So they basically turned the Constitution on its head and began doing all sorts of things, like the Federal Reserve, like a progressive income tax, like changing the way U.S. senators are elected, like stealing land to build national parks, like establishing the FBI after Congress had decided not to do it. They did all kinds of things on their own, believing that the president was a sort of prince who could get away with whatever he wanted except that which was prohibited in the document.
And as you mentioned, Judge, these two men were political opponents, and they came from remarkably different backgrounds. How is it that they arrive at this same interpretation of what they can do, or this just general disregard for the Constitution? Was this supported by contemporary voters?
Yes, it was supported by contemporary voters. Their march toward progressivism, arguably begun by Theodore Roosevelt and concluded by Woodrow Wilson, because the country returns to a period of sanity in the 20s, that is, the government stops expanding a little bit, was very much approved by the voters. That, of course, doesn't justify it, because a lot of what they did stole property and stole liberty. They utterly became the tyrants of the majority. One was a Republican, one was a Democrat. Though they hated each other, they agreed on all policy decisions.
And you know what? It gives people a lot to think about this President's Day. This segment alone, people are going to be confused, and they're going to be rethinking their principles and their
President
desires.
Obama is the natural heir of Theodore and Woodrow, but even they would be scandalized by what he's attempting to do in their names.
What's your next book?
My next book...
Is it a secret?
No. My next book is called Suicide Pact, The Constitution and the Radical Expansion of Presidential Power After 9/11. It's coming out as a 100-page NYU Law School Law Review article next month and a 350-page HarperCollins book in the spring.
I don't know how you find the time, but I love how you pour your wisdom into these conversations and these books. Thank you, Judge.
Thanks for giving me this outlet. All the best to you.
Very good.